So you've put in the effort to film some B-roll of yourself for your next YouTube video. You've set up the tripod, you got all the shots, and now that it's all recorded, you're thinking to yourself, what am I gonna do with all of this? Today I wanted to show you my process for editing B-roll into YouTube videos. We'll talk about how to combine it with your A-roll to create an engaging story, and how to edit your B-roll to music. And by the way, everything that I'm gonna show you, you can do for free in the free version of DaVinci Resolve. So you don't even have to buy any expensive software to get started with these editing tips. And by the way, thanks to Storyblocks for sponsoring today's video. We'll talk more about them later. First, I think we should just really quickly define what exactly is B-roll and what is A-roll. B-roll is basically supplemental footage that helps to enhance the story, but it isn't the main focus of the video. A-roll, on the other hand, is the main focus of the video. So in the case of YouTube videos like mine, the talking head part where you see me chatting to the camera, that's the A-roll. Meanwhile, all those other clips that you saw in the intro, for example, of me setting up my tripod and filming myself writing in my journal and all that, that is B-roll because it helped to enhance what I was saying, but it wasn't the main purpose of the video. I'll admit the exact definition of this can be a bit fuzzy because sometimes clips that look like B-roll are actually the A-roll of a video. Let's just say if the point of the scene was to show me making a coffee in the morning. That definitely felt like A-roll, right? But if I use those exact same clips over top of a talking head segment where I'm talking about how I love my mid-afternoon coffee and it's so important for me to take a break around 2:30 or 3 in the afternoon because I need to get that caffeine hit to be productive for the rest of the day. See, in that case, it definitely felt like B-roll, right? With that disclaimer out of the way, for the purpose of today's video, when I talk about B-roll, I mean supplemental clips that you add on top of talking head footage, the way that I tend to do it in my own videos. And that's what I'm gonna show you how to edit. All right, before we can even start looking at our B-roll, the first step in any edit is gonna be getting our A-roll on the timeline. The way I like to do this in Resolve is just find the clip that I know is the talking head segment for my video, and I'm gonna right click it and then click on Create New Timeline using selected clips. Now to really efficiently edit my talking head segment, I'm gonna use the waveform and basically look for clues to when I need to cut out a certain section. If you're not familiar, the way that audio waveforms work is anytime you see a flat line here, that basically indicates that the video is more or less silent. The size of the wave indicates how loud the volume is at that point. So when I see a silent segment in my video, I pretty much know that I wasn't talking then. I was probably checking my script to see what my next line was supposed to be. So I'm just gonna use the blade tool and cut right before the waveform starts getting active like that. And then I'll use the selector tool here to select this part of the clip and then just delete it. And then pretty much what I like to do while editing is just play back the video and then start cutting out sections as it's playing. And normally I can be fast enough that I can get rid of the pause before the playhead even arrives at that point on the timeline. But sometimes I do have to pause and delete like that. And this is pretty much how I go about editing my talking head segments. And with all of our pauses cut out, now we're ready to start adding B-roll to the timeline. So let's go up to my folders here in the media pool. I am a huge nerd for file organization. So when I'm filming my videos, I like to sort out which clips are for which scene and kind of sort them into folders based on that. If you want to know more about that, I talked about it in this video that I made about how to edit faster. But since we're working on the intro, let's go into the folder for my intro B-roll. To get these clips in the right order and make sure that I'm putting them in the timeline where I envisioned it when I was writing the script, I'm actually gonna pull up my video script in Notion here, because the way I tend to format this is I will have a section where it's pretty much the script. This is what I'm saying during the talking head part. And then on the right-hand side, I will have a list of the B-roll clips that I want to capture to go along with that part of the script. So this is basically the segment of A-roll that we just edited. So now we're going to be looking for some clips of me setting up the tripod, a close-up behind the camera of me adjusting it while I'm sitting in front of it, a point of view of the camera, me zooming in and out and adjusting focus. Okay, so we know we need to find those clips. So with that information, we're gonna start going through this folder. So if we take a look in the media pool here, this is the clip of me setting up the tripod. So all I'm gonna do is click on that and bring it into this preview panel here. In general, what we're seeing on the screen here is on the right-hand side, this window here is a preview of what's happening in the timeline. And this window here is just a preview of the clips in the media pool that we're looking at specifically. Once I pull in a new B-roll clip, all I'm gonna do is press the space bar to start watching it back and decide what section of this clip I want to include in the timeline. So as I'm watching it here, I realize like, okay, yeah, I remember I sort of made a mistake when I was setting it up and it didn't like look how I wanted. So I actually kind of redid that action in the same clip. So knowing that, I'm kind of gonna wait and I'll press I here to set my in point because I know that's the beginning of what I want to include in the video. And then when I'm sort of finished this action, I'm gonna press O to set my out point. And basically what I've done here is I've kind of pre-edited this clip and I've told Resolve where I want the clip to start and end. Now all I'm gonna do is hover my mouse over this image and you'll see these two icons show up, one that's a little audio icon and one that's a video icon. And I'm gonna click on the video icon and drag that down into the timeline. And now I have my clip from the in point to the out point with just video only, no audio, in my timeline. Because I've got my script handy, I know that this clip goes along with the very beginning of my A-roll segment, so I'm just gonna drag it to the start of the timeline and leave it there for now. Now I'm gonna do the same process again. So the next clip that I'm looking for is a close-up behind the camera. I'm adjusting the camera while sitting in front of it. All right, so I found the clip that I recorded for that point. And again, I'm just gonna press the space bar and let this play back and hit the I at the point where I want this clip to start, and then hit the O for where I want the clip to end. And again, I'm just gonna drag the video clip into the timeline. So that's the basic process. I'm just gonna repeat that over and over again with all of the clips that I want to use for this part of the video. At this point, I'm just placing them roughly in the neighborhood of where I want them to end up, because later on we're gonna adjust the timing. Now at this point you might be thinking, what do I do if I didn't actually film that much B-roll and now that I'm editing, my video's feeling a little bit boring? Then you might just wanna try out Storyblocks. Storyblocks is my go-to for getting interesting and high quality visuals to use in my YouTube videos. Storyblocks is an online stock media library with a huge variety of stock footage, animation templates, sound effects, background music, and more. It is a goldmine of finding stuff that you can use to make your YouTube videos more interesting. And when you have a Storyblocks subscription, you have full permission to use the content in your videos, so you don't have to worry about copyright strikes. And all of the content on Storyblocks is available to you for one consistent monthly subscription price, so you don't have to worry about a pricey pay-per-clip system really adding up. Something that I use Storyblocks for quite a bit actually is getting drone footage of the places that I travel to, particularly places where flying a drone is difficult or restricted. For example, I, a mere mortal, cannot fly a drone over Tokyo, Japan. But on Storyblocks, I can find clips from people who are allowed to do that. Storyblocks is like the antidote to boring videos, and if you find yourself editing and you're like, shoot, I really didn't film enough, don't worry, just go to storyblocks.com/Katie and you can try it out for yourself today. All right, now that all of our clips are in the timeline, it's time to get the timing of them right. As you can see, as I added my B-roll, I actually have more B-roll than I have A-roll right now, which we need to fix. But that's okay. This is just the natural result of setting your in and out points based on the part of the clip that you like, but we're just gonna trim it down a bit. So to do that, what we have to do is go back to the beginning here and play back and actually listen to what I'm saying and make sure that the visuals kind of match up. So let's take a listen.
Filming for your YouTube videos can be a challenge when you're your own camera operator.
Now, when I first wrote this script, I sort of envisioned this clip appearing as you hear me say, filming your own YouTube videos can be a challenge, like that part. And then when I get to the when you're your own camera operator, I want you to actually see a camera on screen. So I'm gonna play it back one more time and make sure that I cut at the point where I want it to transition.
Filming for your YouTube videos can be a challenge.
So right before it says camera, I'm gonna go and make sure that this is a cut. However, maybe actually wanna show a slightly different part of this clip, not necessarily just the first half, because I actually think I like the part where you see me extending the tripod like this. I think that's just a little bit more visually dynamic. So I'm going to actually delete the first section here. I'm gonna move this over and maybe I'll extend the beginning and then I'll go maybe like that and like that. Okay, let's take a look.
Filming for your YouTube videos can be a challenge when you're your own camera operator.
Okay, that's pretty good. So I actually need to make the cut like here. So I'll drag that back. And then we'll just grab our next clip and slide it over on the timeline to meet the first one. And I'll keep listening and see how it matches up.
Own camera operator. You don't have anyone to frame the shot for you?
Now that I'm watching this, I actually think that I want it to be a little bit quicker than that. So I'm even gonna go back and shorten our first clip.
Videos can be
Gonna do that and like that.
Filming for your YouTube videos can be a challenge when you're your own camera.
I'm also feeling like this second clip here, it really gets more interesting at the point where my playhead is right now. Like if we play it back from this point, it's a little bit like, I don't know. Some of this stuff, it's vibes based. Maybe you get what I mean as you see it too, but I feel like this is the point that's interesting. Like when I'm putting the camera onto the tripod, like that's what we want to see. So I'm gonna cut that off and then again, just bump that clip up against the previous one. And then I feel like once my hand goes over the camera like that, it's like, not much to see here, you know, like it sort of becomes less visually interesting. So I'm gonna cut there as well, and then just delete this next part of the clip. Something else that I have to play with here, because I filmed these clips in 60 frames per second, is I can actually make them slow motion. So I think I'm gonna try that out. So we'll select this clip, and I have my keyboard shortcuts mapped out so that when I hit R on my keyboard, it brings up the change clip speed panel here. So I'm just gonna change that to 50% and click change. And then I'm gonna extend this out further. And I think I'm gonna do the same thing to this clip too and extend it as well. Now let's take a look.
Filming for your YouTube videos can be a challenge when you're your own camera operator.
I think we're getting there. Now, my next clip, I know I wanted to start when I mentioned about like framing your own shots, because that's sort of what this next clip really demonstrates. So I actually think it's this one here. So I'm gonna just drag that over to meet at that point, and we'll take a listen.
Have anyone to frame the shot for you?
See, and then I say press record, and you see me pressing record in the clip. So that's kind of what I want you to see. And then this is sort of the second half of that clip. So I'm gonna move it over here as well. Basically, you can see the process is pretty intuitive. It's just about matching up the visuals that you're showing with what you're saying in the A-roll, and just continue to play it back. See how you feel about it as you watch it in real time, and make adjustments as needed to make it feel more fluid. Honestly, a lot of this comes down to personal preference and taste, but I know that can be hard to develop. It takes a lot of time. So if you're just getting started, I wanted to share 5 kind of guidelines that you can work with to help make your final result look as professional and cinematic as possible. Our first clip here brings up a great example, and this is my first tip for you. Show movement as it happens rather than seeing the beginning where there's kind of a pause and then the movement starts. Like if I play this back, hopefully you'll see what I mean. You can see I'm sort of paused there, and then you kind of like start to see it adjust. Like it's really just about the speed that I did that with. But again, I don't know, somehow the beginning just feels a bit awkward to me. So if I actually start more like there, you can almost see there's a little bit of motion blur in the shot. And I'm gonna just cut off this beginning part and bring it over. It just feels a little bit more like, okay, we're like catching up with the story midway through the action. It feels more fluid to me. Tip number 2, generally you should aim for your B-roll clips to be somewhere between like 2 and 5 seconds long. If they're too short, it feels chaotic, but if they're too long, it starts to feel a bit boring. Tip number 3, add movement to your tripod shots. Since like me, you're probably gonna be using a lot of clips of yourself that you filmed by yourself. So that means that you shot them sitting on a tripod and they're most likely stationary, which is fine, but we can make them look a little bit more dynamic and interesting with just a few adjustments. So let's take this tripod one again, for example. I know we've watched this a bunch of times already, but you know, it's fine. It's like pretty like stable, maybe a little boring. So what we can do is select the clip, and we'll bring the playhead to the very beginning of it. And then I'm gonna go up here and click on inspector. My aim here is I'm gonna make it look like the camera was panning left to right. So in order to do that, we need to start by zooming in just a little bit so that we have the room to kind of like move the camera. Now that it's zoomed in, I'm gonna move down to my X position here. So this is kind of like the position of the image within the frame. And I'm just gonna click on the X value and just drag it over to the right a little bit. And then what I'm gonna do is click on this little diamond icon here that represents a keyframe. Basically by clicking this, I'm telling Resolve, put the video in this formation, like in this location at this time in the video. Now that we've done that, we're gonna go ahead and open up our little keyframe timeline within our timeline here. So when we click on that, you can see we have this little white diamond here right at the beginning of the clip. Next, we're gonna go ahead and put our playhead near the end, and we're gonna go back to the X value again, and this time drag it a little bit to the left. I guess I went to the right the first time. And just until we're kind of like happy with that placement. Now you're gonna wanna go down and just like make sure that your little white keyframe here is actually on the very end of the clip, and we'll do that for the one at the beginning as well. I'll just show you, for example, if you don't do that, let's say the keyframe is like here and we're playing back our clip, it's like nicely panning and it stops and it feels very abrupt. So I wanna make sure that always my keyframes for movements like this are at the very beginning and very end of the clip. With that done, now we can watch it back and you see we have this lovely, subtle, slow movement. It almost makes it look like we had like a slider or something. Just sort of makes the shot more dynamic. Okay, my fifth and final tip for you is to match cuts between two clips with the action that you're doing in the clip. So for example, let's take a look at this clip of me basically walking into the scene, sitting down on the chair, and then eventually taking a sip from my mug. I filmed that both at a wide angle and more of a close-up, and I want to cut between the two in my sequence. This is where doing a match cut becomes really important. So let's just play this back. So I go and I take a sip, and then we cut, and then I go to take a sip again. And immediately, so unrealistic, right? Because we haven't matched that action correctly. Instead, what we're gonna do is, as we're playing back the clip, right before the action happens, we're gonna pause there, because that is exactly where we wanna cut. And we're gonna really study like, okay, what is the position of my hand at this moment? And we're gonna make the cut there. And we're gonna look for that same position right there, right? It's like I haven't quite taken a sip yet, but I'm about to. So now if we cut out these two segments and bring this together, we should have quite a seamless transition. The last thing I want to address in this beginner B-roll editing video is how to edit your B-roll clips to music. This is for when you want to make like a cute little montage, maybe to transition between scenes or something like that, rather than lining up your clips with talking like how I just showed you. So I've got my music track in the timeline here already, and first off, I'm just going to use the same method that I showed you before of going through and picking out the section of each B-roll clip that I would like to include. So for this, let's switch it up and we'll use a little bit of travel B-roll that I have from a trip to New York I did last spring. Oh, we got that in point, we got that out point, we got that Strand bookstore. Okay, so basically we've got like a gaggle of clips here, all various lengths, not really like intentionally done, and now we're gonna get them in formation to the beat. Okay, so basically what I like to do is I'll just bring the playhead to the front of the clip like this, and then I'm pretty much just gonna press play, and I am gonna try my best to hit my M key to the beat. And what this will do is it'll add markers on the timeline where the beats in the music is. So, well, let's do it. Okay, that's enough guitar. But yeah, basically what I've done is just established visual markers for myself where the beats happen. So now I can use that to really easily line up my clips to the beat. So let's do that. I think I'm actually gonna have my like little airplane clip here go on for several beats, and then I will trim it here. The nice thing about Resolve is as I'm trimming my clip, if I line up with the marker here, it will actually give me a little gray line that indicates, hey, you're lined up, you're good to go. So then I will release it, and then I'll just click and drag this clip over here, and let's give that a 1 beat sort of timeline. Okay, let's bring this one over, and again, we see that little gray line to let us know we're in the right spot. And so on. We'll do this third one to the beat as well. One thing I do want to say about this is once you discover this technique, you're going to be tempted to make every single cut happen on the beat. But I would recommend against that. I think the beauty of having your clips line up with the beat is that it's kind of this like satisfying moment to the viewer of like, oh yeah, like here we go. But it can get repetitive really quickly. So make sure to include a few clips here and there that are timed more so based on the action of what's happening in the clip rather than just to the timing of the music. So I might even do a couple that are on screen for like 2 beats, let's say, and then I think this clip here would be a really good candidate for just like breaking the musical pattern because it has such a specific action to it, you know, like I pulled this book off the shelf and then I eventually put it back on, so maybe we'll like include that and then cut at that point, which actually happens to be really close to the beat, so that's kind of nice. So when we edit to music like that, we end up with a result like this. Kind of fun, kind of satisfying to watch, and I think it's a really great way to integrate the music that you are using with the clips that you're showing and just make it feel more intentional. Honestly, editing great B-roll sequences really does just take time and practice. But if you use these foundational skills, you'll be well on your way to editing awesome videos. If you are looking for editing support though, I did want to let you know that my team of editors at Creatorly Media is currently accepting new clients. So if you're a YouTuber or a video podcaster that is looking to get editing off of your plate, we would love to help you out. You can check out all the details and the pricing at creatorlymedia.com, and I'll link it in the description as well. Also, I want to say thank you to Vicky for the suggestion to make this video. A ton of you seem to love my ultimate guide to filming yourself for YouTube, and Vicky suggested that I make a follow-up video showing you how to edit all of this lovely B-roll that you filmed of yourself. So thank you, Vicky, and thank you for watching. If you have any video suggestions or tutorials you'd like to see me make next, please let me know in the comments because I would love to make them for you. And as always, I hope that you are having adventures and following your dreams, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye!